Hi everyone, Gothany Utano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review over here of the new Kali Uchis album, Isolation. Kali Uchis is a Colombian singer whose hard work paid off after traveling to the US, focusing on her music career, dropping a mixtape about 6 years ago, and then taking advantage of every single collaborative opportunity that came her way afterwards. Quickly landing feature spots with the likes of Snoop Dogg and Goldlink, Tyler the Creator, Daniel Caesar, Bootsy Collins, and even Gorillaz on their latest record, Humans. Furthermore, some of these artists and more were kind of stumbling over themselves to get a piece of her debut EP, Por Vida, which was a pretty big breakout for her and features production from the likes of Tyler and Bad Bad Not Good, Kaytranada, and even Diplo. Now, admittedly, nothing on this EP really stopped me in my tracks. I failed to see what the hubbub was about. Kali's vocals for me just kind of came off a little too pillowy, a little too flat emotionally. A lot of her appeal seemed to come down to aesthetic and nostalgia. Her singing to me came off like a less expressive Yukimi Nagano of Little Dragon. And then she had this kind of nostalgic look to her, like a fusion of Lana Del Rey and Amy Winehouse, but with kind of a Colombian twist. And a lot of this stuff also holds true for this new album over here, but there's an even larger influx of co-songwriters and producers and features on this record. Just to name a few: DJ Dahi, David Sitek, Romil from Brockhampton, Soundwave, Damon Albarn, BBNG, Tyler, Bootsy Collins again, Steve Lacy, Greg Kurstin, Thundercat, and even Tame Impala's Kevin Parker. Shit, with a roster like that, this album has to be some kind of grand artistic feat, right? I mean, for certain, the production on this thing is super impressive and versatile too. It allows Kali to explore a myriad of different musical influences, transcending boundaries that are not just based on culture, but also genre and even language. But considering that, I still can't shake this feeling that Kali's vocals, even after years of singing and recording and performing, are still a little stiff, occasionally awkward, and consistently faint. Most of the time when her voice does manage to pop in the mix on this album, it's typically when it's overdubbed, just to add another voice back there to bring it a little bit more presence and volume. Even a bed of lavish, elegant strings served with a lethal dose of nostalgia on the classic pop soul sound of the song Flight 22 can't really mask the fact that there isn't a whole lot of power to Kali's lower register, nor are some of the little embellished background vocals she throws into the track all that either. But you can't like really put a bunch of background singers onto the track kind of just throwing out vocal lines and riffing because it's gonna sound better, it's gonna pop more, and the jig's gonna be up. I mean, for example, just take the song Tyrant featuring Georgia Smith. The instrumental has this kind of slow, old school, sensual, dreamy dancehall vibe to it, and the second Smith shows up in the second half of the song, it's like a night and day difference. It feels like we've transitioned from a singer who is used to just singing quietly along to her favorite songs in the car, and then we have a singer who is so much more expressive, animated, one that conveys emotion and kind of brings life to a track. The song sounds pleasant, and it's not like Kali's vocals bring a bad vibe, but her redundant rhyme scheme on this track forces her into a lot of really silly and basic phrasing and references, one of several points on the album where the lyricism is kind of an Achilles heel, which is also the case in the second leg of the Coming Home interlude, where you can catch Kali singing about, she's too skinny, or she's too fat, she's too tall, or she's too short, she's a peach. Some people don't like peaches at all. I like the sentiment of the track pushing forward despite the nitpicky criticisms other people might have of you or you might have of yourself, second guessing yourself. But Kali's word choice sometimes can be painfully simple. And there are at least a few moments on here, most notably the intro and the outro tracks, where I think her performance leaves a little bit to be desired. It's a little stiff, it's a little lifeless. And there are at least a few moments on this album, mostly the intro and outro tracks, where her voice is really spotlit, and you would think in this context she would give the most electrifying or emotional or exciting vocal performance possible, but I'm just left wanting more. All that being said though, I do feel like this album has more strengths than it does weaknesses. And the appeal of Kali is kind of far beyond her vocal chops or her lyrical abilities. Because while she might not have the most presence on the microphone, she has enough heart to go into a song with an idea or a topic and follow through conceptually. There's also a lot of pretty compelling and personal storytelling on this album too. And there's definitely an amateurish charm to what Callie is doing on this record, something that wasn't super apparent to me at first, but when I heard deeper cuts on the album, it's clear she's embracing it. Tracks like Dead to Me and In My Dreams are certainly moments on the album where it feels like she's taking her weaknesses and turning them into strengths, both of which sound like long-lost electronic dance pop gems from decades ago by an artist who time has forgotten because her sound just wasn't commercial enough to top the charts in the 70s and 80s. At this point, the material on this album was kind of reminding me of that Quincy Jones quote from a recent interview where he was saying if you put a great singer on a bad song, you can't save it. It's pointless. It's useless. But the flip of that is you could put a myriad of different singers or singing styles onto a great song, onto a great track, and it's gonna work. Because the appeal of the best tracks on Isolation for me really kind of comes down to songwriting. The song Miami is this dramatic, slow-mo piece of Latin rock. The vocal melodies are simple but super sticky, and the track is essentially about Callie's transition from being a young Colombian girl to somebody who's traveling to America, the land of opportunity, to sort of make it creating music. The vibe of this track for me was pretty powerful. Some of her lyricism kind of simple but slick, and I thought that there was a nice element of escapism to this track too. Also, the verse that guest rapper Bia brings to the track gives the song quite a bit of grit. A lot of these same autobiographical and aspirational themes pour through on the nocturnal disco of the track Tomorrow as well. There's a real sense of longing and restlessness and ambition on this song too. It's a song about needing a change. It's a pretty catchy tune, has a sweet, easygoing vibe to it, and the smart thing about this track is that it plays in thematically with the interlude cuts that precede it and follow it. Now, these tracks don't feature any smooth musical transitions or anything. It would be nice if they segued to sort of bring it all together a bit more effectively, but it's still interesting to hear these feelings of needing to get up and go out there and change things juxtaposed against these feelings of second-guessing yourself and being nervous and being unsure, being homesick. There's also the undeniably groovy Just a Stranger featuring Steve Lacy, with one of the most earworm refrains on the entire record, "She wants my $100 bills." Definitely something I'm catching a little bit of Rick James vibes off of, but there's something dreamy and surreal about the track too, despite how hard-hitting and tangible the instrumentation feels. I love the drum groove on here, the woozy synthesizers, the bass line, and the themes of money and desire and survival going on in the lyrics. The song Flight 22, as much as I am apprehensive about some of the vocal shortcomings on this track, I like the idea of like an obsessive crush song about a guy that you just saw on a plane. Your Teeth in My Neck feels like an old school piece of dance pop. Sounds like it's placed in the 90s. And while the instrumental goes over without a hitch, and this is easily one of Callie's better vocal performances on this record, what makes the song interesting for me are these themes of greed and materialism, status and inequality, unlikely topics for a piece of music in this genre, but they actually go over really well and say to me that Callie is an artist who has more to say than your average pop singer. The dreamy Latin pop sounds of Nuestra Planeta is not only just another great track on the record, incredibly catchy, the only track sung entirely in Spanish, but it's just another notch in this album's versatility belt. I went into this album feeling love already for tracks like After the Storm and Feel Like a Fool, as they were super good teaser tracks, had incredibly vibrant, fun instrumentation, and that's pretty much still the case in the context of the entire album. The former is a sensual and strange piece of funk, with dreamy production, strong grooves, and a decent feature from Tyler, the Creator, and the latter is a bright piece of pop soul, with dusty pianos and bright horn sections, very warm chorus vocals, and actually one of the more animated vocal performances on the entire LP from Callie. The lyrics of the track are pretty bittersweet, just pretty much about being played by this guy who had a lot of secrets and baby mamas, but you can't yet seem to shake him. He's gotten so into you that he's like integrated into your life, into your feelings, you're wearing his sweater, so on and so forth. Overall, I thought this album was very good, and dare I say I loved it, despite some of the obvious shortcomings when it comes to the performances. I think this record is mostly on point. I think what makes a lot of these tracks great, again, are just the melodies, the songs, the lyrical themes, the vibe and aesthetic of this album. It's really all over the place instrumentally, but feels kind of cohesive. Well, cohesive enough, and there's something vaguely hypnagogic. You know, as much as I liked this record, as great as I think it is, I walk away from this album feeling like it's just soaked in potential. Like, this is very great, it's very enjoyable, but I would hate to see Callie just kind of stop here, you know, drop a second or a third record that pretty much sounds just like this. Not only would I like to hear a bit more personality and maybe something a bit weirder in the future, but also the possibilities for Callie's musical career in the future, I think, could be endless if her vocals were just a bit more interesting. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Ugh, off camera forever.